Wanna talk? So let's talk. Here. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk, you wanna talk. So let's talk.
Did not prevail then, but his time will come again. We also have our guest, Michael Brown. Michael, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Thank you for joining us here on Talk to Solomon. Michael, there's so many things happening in this world of ours. I swear you don't know what to talk about first, but let's talk about the fact that Newsweek magazine has announced and pronounced and renounced and everything else they can think of that we now have the first gay president. You would think them be fighting words, but Barack Obama is proud to be the first gay president. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm not in the least bit surprised. Before he was elected, I shared with folks on my own radio program that he was going to be the most gay activist-friendly president in American history. You know, he's on record in 1996 in writing saying that he stood for legalizing same-sex marriage, that he would oppose any efforts against that. So that was a clear stance he took early on. I've been very skeptical about his claims over the years that as a Christian, that he does not stand for same-sex unions and gay marriage is not a civil right. What he's come out for now is what he's been really campaigning for several years. He is the most gay activist-friendly president in our history. And maybe the most amazing thing to me is that he justifies a man having sex with a man in a romantic relationship and calling it marriage based on, quote, Christ sacrificing himself on our behalf. And that utterly baffles me, how you're going to go from Jesus dying for the sins of the world to two men having sex, romantic connection, and calling it marriage. It's absurd, and it's really a tragic day for America.
Well, I think that at least the majority, those numbers have changed. The people from my generation and the Chief's generation and your generation are more inclined to say that's wrong than our kids and our grandkids. But there is a reality, and that is homosexuality has a history that far exceeds what's happened in the United States of America, and I think that's what's being ignored. Now, Chief, you have a thought here?
Sure do. This is a war. It's just not a battle. And so people like Barack Obama that have an agenda in mind to destroy the entire American way of society, this is not about homosexuality. This is about destroying America.
Now, Michael, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The very foundations of human civilization are at risk. I mean, we say these things, people vilify us and say we're crazy, but the foundation of all foundations is that we're made male and female, and that a man and woman come together in a unique relationship that we call marriage, and as a general rule have kids, and those kids are joined to a mother and father. It's just the most simple foundational thing. That is under attack. Gender is under attack. In Sweden right now, there's a move to remove gender at all, so that if you want to name your girl Jack or your boy Lisa, go ahead and do it. There are schools in America today where they don't line up kids by gender, you know, boys over here, girls over here, but by sneaker color. I live in North Carolina. There's a preschool here in North Carolina where the teachers are not allowed to call the 4-year-olds boys and girls because that would be making a gender distinction. They have to call them friends. And ultimately, gay activists that came out of the closet 40 plus years ago, fighting for what they would say is equality and tolerance and equal rights, in their mind, the tolerance only goes one way, because those who came out of the closet really want to put us in the closet. And this issue of homosexual activism is the principal threat to religious freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, and family foundations in America today. I spent years working on a book called A Queer Thing Happened to America. And publisher after publisher told me it's too hot to handle. We don't dare address these things because what you pay in terms of opposition and reproach and slander and attack is too much. It's not worth it. It's really a very serious situation. we love all people, but we absolutely stand against the goals of gay activism. We know where this thing is going.
Well, now I'm going to make a statement for which I have been called many names, and that everyone has a right to their own opinion. I don't argue with that. But I believe the basis of homosexuality is pedophilia. I don't believe that every homosexual individual practices pedophilia by a stretch of the imagination. I know a lot of gay people that I know would absolutely, go crazy at the thought of anyone doing that to a child. They're good people. But the reality is, and you can go all the way back to Plato, that homosexuality is about sex being the center of your life, as opposed to heterosexuality, marriage, where sex is a part of your life. Heterosexuals aren't labeled by their sexual, quote-unquote, proclivity, but homosexuals proudly do label themselves based on their sexual proclivity. Your thoughts?
Well, every homosexual man that I've spoken to and raised this issue about pedophilia, everyone has said that they're repulsed by it. It's wrong, it's abusive, it's coercive, and it's a power conflict, someone taking advantage of another. It can't possibly be right. That being said, we know throughout history that so-called man-boy love was very common, that it's common in homosexual literature through the centuries. We know in the ancient Greek world it was a so-called mentoring system where a man would have a boy lover, and it was just a common thing that was happening in society. In the early days of gay activism, the pedophile groups, the NAMBLAs, North American Boy Love Association, were at the forefront, and then public opinion and other things worked against it, so they've been pushed out. But this much is clear. The same arguments that are used to justify homosexual practice, I was born this way, I can't change, it's love and affection, it's in the animal world, it's richly attested in other cultures. The same arguments that are used to justify homosexual practice are also used to justify pedophilia. I have a whole chapter in my book, A Queer Thing Happened to America. I probably get more flack over that chapter than anyone, where I say I'm not calling all homosexuals or most homosexuals pedophiles. I'm simply looking at parallel arguments. And if you want to make an argument for the one, you can make an argument for the other. The other thing is that there are psychologists and psychiatrists who say that narcissism is ultimately at the root of homosexuality. And when you think of, say, someone that's married with kids and they've been suppressing their homosexual desires and trying to function in a heterosexual environment, and finally decide they can't do it, they can't live with themselves, they destroy the marriage, they destroy their family, that's ultimately a narcissistic type of choice. And when people do identify based on an orientation, yeah, I'm heterosexual, but I don't primarily think of myself as heterosexual male, I live my life. When someone is so focused on their sexual orientation, it does become a fixation. The way the Bible is read gets changed, the way culture is viewed gets changed, so it becomes an all-pervasive dominating aspect of one's life. There's no question about that.
Gee?
Well, I've spent my entire adult life in law enforcement, and I see this as an attempt to just break down the laws of our society. We got the basis for marriage of a man and a woman from God, and it's been that way since the beginning of time. And now, if the other side can tear down the law of marriage, they can tear down all of our laws. That's what I think the objective is. But also, being lawful, the lesbian and gay community, they don't allow us to criticize them one little bit. But we're expected to give them nothing but consideration in everything that they do. It is wrong, and it must be stopped.
I couldn't agree more. Go ahead.
In point of fact, we are now codified as bigots. In any state that has redefined marriage, because it now says marriage is genderless, it's the union of any two people, those who differ with it, those who say it's morally wrong, are now speaking against the law. We are therefore codified as bigots. I've had people rail on me, call me every name under the sun in the harshest possible way, and I'd say, aren't you being intolerant? And they said to me, we should be intolerant to people like you. You're no better than the KKK. You're no better than Nazis. I just posted an article on townhall.com today called Why Gay is Not the New Black. This has been hijacked as a civil rights movement. And I asked the question, how can you compare skin color to romantic attraction and sexual behavior? How can you possibly compare the two? And yet this is the analogy that's being used. Therefore, those that say, according to the Bible, God's order is male and female, or, we really think it's best for a kid to have a mom and a dad. If we say that, we are now intolerant, hate-filled, homophobic bigots. And in the school system, I cite this in A Queer Thing Happened to America. Dr. Dorothy Riddle put together what's called the Riddle Homophobia Scale for high school students and teachers to use to analyze whether their attitudes are homophobic or not. And under homophobic attitudes, if you can believe this, it lists pity, repulsion. Okay, I understand why they say that. Tolerance and acceptance. Tolerance and acceptance of homosexuality are now considered homophobic. Instead, there must be support, admiration, appreciation, and nurturance. Homosexuality must be celebrated, otherwise we'll be called bigots.
Well, somehow I'm not surprised. The reality is that homosexuality is a decision. Now, some people will say, I was born. I don't argue with morons. Nothing is gained. But let's just say, for the sake of discussion, you're born with too much testosterone and not enough estrogen, or too much estrogen and not enough testosterone to be what we call today balanced. If that is the case, then you have desires. No one's going to argue. But acting on those desires is a choice. Acting on those desires is a decision that you make. So that I'm an old guy. I think attractive young ladies, 20, 25 years old, are they're just beautiful ladies. I'm attracted to them. But I have made the decision not to act on that attraction for two reasons. One, my wife would kill me. And two, it would be wrong. And three, they'd probably say, go away, Grandpa. But here's the reality. We have a whole society that says they shouldn't be held culpable for their decisions. And I'm saying Chief, aren't a lot of crimes committed by people who decide on impulse, in many cases, that they wanted something that wasn't theirs?
Yes, and so murders are too. There's a lot of crimes committed on impulse.
So that's acting on an impulse, but you weren't born a murderer.
No, but another thing that's been brought up in this show is our schools. And for example, religion, most people can't afford to send their kids to private schools. So religious people send their kids to public schools, but about 88% of those come out not believing in God after being indoctrinated at our public schools. The same thing's happening with the homosexual agenda. So our kids that most parents believe are going to school to learn math and science and English are being indoctrinated to believe that it is wrong to speak out against homosexual behavior. And also, like our guest said tonight, you must not only not speak against it, but be in favor of it, or else you're going to be in trouble with the school system and in trouble with the law. And so this whole propaganda issue has got to be stopped, and we have got to be able to speak out and do something about it and get the laws in our favor rather than against us so that we have a fair chance to stop this.
Now, joining us on the show is my friend Brent Johnson, calling us from parts unknown, but Brent is a well-traveled, well-researched, experienced talk show person. Brent, how are you?
Just fine, Stan. It's a pleasure to be with you and the listeners. And I've been listening avidly to this conversation.
So do you have a comment for Dr. Brown and for the rest of us?
Well, my general comment is this is simply another example of how we have abandoned any kind of standard for what is right and what is wrong. I happen to believe that there are some things that are just plain wrong, fundamentally wrong. And our country was founded on those beliefs. And that's not a religious statement. That's just a statement of morality. And if you eliminate morality and say anything could be right under the right circumstances, this is kind of what you end up with, where it's humanism, where everything can be justified in some way. I think what you just said a moment ago is correct, that people do things on impulse because they felt like it. Well, that doesn't mean that it's okay. And I think we have to stop being afraid of saying that. I think we have to stop fearing that someone will be offended if we come out and say, this piece of behavior is wrong, period.
Dr. Brown, how do people get your book, A Queer Thing Happened to America?
The easiest way is just to go online to Amazon.com and order it, most bookstores will not touch it. Most bookstores will not go near it. It's the 20th book that I wrote. I had publishers tell me it's well written, it's well researched, but I don't dare publish it because it would be too costly. A conservative publisher told me that if he published the book, it might practically bankrupt his firm. And you know what I did? We formed our own publishing house called Equal Time Books. I took all the rejections, all the reasons that nobody would touch it, and I put that on the back cover of the book. Instead of endorsements, I have all the anti-endorsements. Then get it from our website, AskDrBrown.org, or the cheapest, easier way, go to Amazon.com. And it's extraordinary to see that free speech is literally being taken away. I have a whole chapter in the book called Big Brother is Watching, and he really is gay. I've had friends and colleagues who were actually fired from positions they had or released because privately they took issue with homosexual activism. And the comment that was just made about we're so afraid to offend, I mean, pastors and Christian leaders, it's the same thing. They just want everybody to accept them. They just want to be nice. Well, people hated Jesus. People hated the prophets. People hated prominent leaders that were world changers in history. Why is it we think everybody's going to like us? Why is it now the goal of our life to avoid interpersonal conflict? We need to speak the truth while we have the opportunity to, because the doors are quickly closing on us, and many people are going in the closet and shutting the doors themselves.
Now, the number one killer of young black men in this country is not guns. It's AIDS. It's the, what is the word? It is the propulsion of homosexuality through the black community, and now we have the NAACP endorsing gay marriage. Now you have conservative black pastors who have stood strong and been the foundations of many of the accomplishments within the black community being told, you'll get on this train or we're going to run over you. Now, let me start with Brent. Brent, your feeling of the price the black community will pay based on the Obama mandates, if you will, that you cannot be black and not be for homosexual marriage.
Well, I don't even limit it to the black community. I think it's humanity in general. But taking it from your perspective, I think there is a great price to be paid, and I think that it was just said very well. It's the point of abandoning truth, abandoning what's right in favor of what is politic. That's where the damage comes in. This is a symptom. What you're discussing is a symptom, but the root cause is the unwillingness to face the truth about issues. And when we abandon truth, then we go down a horrible, horrible road into a pit, into an abyss from which we'll never come out. I think that from a practical viewpoint, you'll see death and disease on the rise. You'll see misery on the rise. You'll see achievement going down. You'll see greater depression. You'll see greater stress. I mean, you'll see more crime. All of those are symptoms, but the root cause is the willingness. And it's a willingness among all the American people to go along with the corporate media, to go along with the Obamas of the world. He's not the only one, who say it is more important to get along for the sake of profits and for the sake of government control, to get along, than it is to pursue what is right, to pursue what is good, to pursue what is true. And that's the only way you're going to change it. If you attack that cause, I don't think you're going to change it just by putting someone new in office, because the underlying influences remain the same.
I agree, but I'll make a statement, then I'll get Dr. Brown to respond. I believe there is a plan, in fact, I've seen it, to create a smaller human race. And one of the things that will be eliminated in this plan will be black people. I think this is part of a plan to eliminate black people. Margaret Sanger's talked about it long ago, where now 2 of every 3 black children conceived are aborted, are murdered. I think the promotion of homosexuality shortens lifespans and increases deadly disease, not AIDS being only one of them. I think there is an overt plan, and what is amazing is a so-called black man, so-called, is at the head of this program to eliminate as many black people in the world as possible. Dr. Brown?
Well, I can't comment on all the evidence you've seen or the reasons that you would look at this as a larger master plan. On a spiritual level, there's a devil that hates the human race that wants to wipe people out. I don't argue that. In terms of abortion specifically, though, there can be no question that there was a plan with eugenics to weed out these lower races, the poor, and so on, the racist tendencies that Margaret Sanger quite explicitly laid out and expressed. And you can look in terms of black deaths overall, not just for an age group, but deaths in the African American community. Add everything up: car wrecks, heart disease, sexually transmitted diseases, murder, whatever. Add everything up, and it doesn't come near the amount that are being killed and taken through abortion. And when it comes to abortion, the black Christian community has just been very dull to that, hasn't recognized the plague of it, the reality of it. When it comes to redefining marriage, though, that's really creating much more in terms of resistance and response. And there are many that draw the line there because they still hold to certain conservative family issues. So from what I can tell, and other black pastors that I know, there is an uprising, and the NAACP does not speak for all black Americans. They are more committed to liberal causes than to the African American people. But one way or another, there is a conspiracy to destroy African American lives in America. There's no question about that. There's so many different angles we see this coming, and for the president to now come out and say what he said, it must create an uprising against his position in the black community. Otherwise, they've kind of sold their souls to political correctness.
Chief?
Well, I've been very active in the Republican Party most of my life, and I've heard some very prominent elected Republican members that have said they would rather lose their election than be considered mean or rude in any certain way. But that kind of philosophy is going to get us destroyed because we must be able to speak out against this agenda. And again, this is not an anti-homosexual message. This is an anti-homosexual agenda message, because the agenda says that we're not allowed to speak our own minds and voice our own opinions. We must do it their way. So the agenda is the problem. We're going to have people, not just elected officials, but also Christians and pastors and religious leaders that will be able to speak out and speak their mind about this, because if they be quiet and stay in the closet, like you said, and don't speak their minds, it's just going to get more disastrous for all of us.
Brent, did you have a comment there?
Yes, actually, because I think that's an excellent point, that it's not an issue about anti-homosexuality. Okay, it's not an issue like that. The issue is free speech. That America was founded on the principle that you can fearlessly say what it is you believe. If you believe homosexuality is wrong, you can say that without any fear that there will be repercussions, either political or otherwise. Today, that type of free speech has all but been eliminated, and it's not just on this issue. It's in so many ways. And so, yes, I think that's an excellent point. This is an issue around free speech. That's where we need to really put our focus.
Dr. Brown, we have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to give it to you. Again, tell people how you can get the book, A Queer Thing Happened to America.
Yeah, and I cannot urge people strongly enough to get this. I worked on it over a 6-year period. It's massively researched. We cover everything from children's education to the university, from what's happening in the media to the rewriting of the Bible, to the whole question of can people change, ex-gays, to our religious freedoms under fire, and then where we are going. So the book is called A Queer Thing Happened to America. You can just order it online, Amazon.com, or you can go to our website to get it, askdrbrown.org. Of course, it's available as an e-reader as well. And just to affirm what you gentlemen are saying, what Brent just said, the way this has been on my heart is reach out and resist. Reach out to the people with compassion. As a follower of Jesus, I care about all people. I believe that God loves all people the same and wants to give them the same opportunity to know him, that Jesus shed his blood for heterosexual and homosexual alike. That's not my issue. I'll befriend everyone I can, regardless of their sexual orientation or lifestyle, and get involved with their lives to be a help if I can. At the same time, I absolutely resist the agenda. Reach out to the people, resist the agenda. And I've been involved in lots of controversies over the years, theological, cultural controversies, ministry controversies, but nothing touches this. Nothing comes anywhere near it, the level of assault, the level of vilification. And let's remember that 31 out of 31 states have voted saying marriage is the union of a man and a woman. I live in North Carolina now, from New York originally. I live in North Carolina. We voted 61% to 39% just a little over a week ago, May 8th, saying that marriage is the union of a man and woman. The governor was so upset, she said, we look like Mississippi. Others said democracy is breaking down because the backwoods people who don't really understand, they're still allowed to vote. This is a massive societal divide. It is the ultimate threat to religious freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience. And I didn't go looking for this battle. This came knocking at our doors with gay pride events, with gay-themed media pouring into our kids' homes, our homes, with things pouring into our schools, with big business supporting this, with politicians supporting this. This has basically been rammed down our throats, and all we're saying is we are not going to back down. Those coming against us, their mantra is basically this: we will intimidate and we will manipulate until you capitulate. And we have to draw a line in the sand and say, with all respect, we are not backing down for what we know is true and right. Dr. Martin Luther King said a man dies when he refuses to stand up for that which is right. We have to take our stand regardless of cost or consequence. Otherwise, we have to apologize to our kids and our grandkids.
Well said, Dr. Brown. In fact, I have a philosophy. It's called the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But do it first, do it often, and make damn sure they don't forget it. No one gets in my face promoting homosexuality and leaves with theirs. And I think it is time for all, whatever you want to say, all good people, all moral people, all loving people, all caring people to stand up rather than lay down, because children, grandchildren will be affected adversely to the point of being eliminated. They won't have an opportunity. If a company is going to promote homosexuality, and some do, then vote with your dollars. We do not have to be liked by the like of them. They, by the way, no matter what we do, like us. That's, well, let me turn to Chief. How well do conservatives do when they give up their principles to go along with liberals?
Well, they always lose. The liberals' philosophy on bipartisan means do it their way totally. And so that's the same way with the homosexual agenda. You must do it their way, the only way, and you're not allowed to have any other type of input. Their way is the only way. And if not, you're a hater.
The only good homosexual is a saved homosexual, and you mentioned that, Dr. Brown. There are millions of people in this country who have, for whatever reason, been in that lifestyle, who have left it and are very proud of the fact they've left it, but yet they're never allowed to say a word. Is that not right? Never allowed. Dr. Brown.
Oh, they're not allowed. Yeah, they're not allowed to say a word, whatever the number is, thousands or who knows the number. But I have a whole chapter about ex-gays. It's the ultimate persecuted group because you're not even allowed to say I've changed, I've been helped. And there's a bill now in California, SB 1172, they're about to vote on that would make it illegal for a counselor to tell a minor, a 17-year-old with his family, says, hey, I want help. I don't want to be attracted to the same sex. Illegal to counsel that person. And then for an adult to come, you would have to sign off saying, I know this will not work and it will be dangerous. This is scary and it's coming our way.
Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Brown. The book, A Queer Thing Happened to America. We'll be back with more with Brent Johnson and Chief Steve Davis. Stay tuned. Do you like to eat? I do. We all run to the store if we're hungry, right? Well, there are times when that doesn't work. And for those times, and it may be for an hour, and it may be for a day, and and maybe for a week, who knows, God's in charge, you need to have quality food. Alpine Air, that's what this is, quality food. It has extended shelf life, and it tastes great. You should store what you eat and eat what you store. Just go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for the Alpine Air foods. It's incredibly reasonable. It's actually a way to save money. Alpine Air has quality food that's going to be there when you need it. It's always better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Alpine Air at cpnlive.com. Click on the icon and protect your family. You have a computer, if you're alive today, which means you have a hard drive, which means it's going to break down. Mosey, the backup people, for thousands, for Stan, for thousands of people, for tens of thousands of people, is simply common sense. You go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and sign up. It's just a few dollars a month. Let me tell you something. We had a break-in. They stole our whole computer. You know what? When they take the computer, you can't recover anything, but we had Mosey. We had the backup. We were able to restore everything simply by buying another computer. cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and give yourself common sense, peace of mind, great value, the best thing you've ever done. Sooner or later, it's going to be Mosey, the backup people. I am holding in my hand a product. It's called TR10 Supercolloidal Silver. It's a natural antibiotic that works. You know, the reason we use silver to make cutlery, silverware, is because nothing grows on silver. It's the reason they put it in your teeth. It's the reason they use silver instruments to operate on the brain. TR10 is very inexpensive. Just go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for the TR10, and order a quart. It's so inexpensive, it's really silly. But it's invaluable when you have a sore throat, when you have a cold, when you have something you're concerned about in yourself, your child, whether you have to spray it in your eyes or swallow it or put it on your skin, makes no difference. It's totally safe. It has less silver than is the safe level in drinking water, yet it's done in such a way that it does the job. A natural antibiotic, yours, TR10, supercolloidal silver, from cpnlive.com. Just click on the icon.